Okay, we'll start with this. Well, former WBC super lightweight champion Erika Farias is going to be returning to action against Janina del Carmen Lescano for what is listed as the WBA's super lightweight title.
What?
Which is a bit confusing because, as far as I know, Kali Reis, America's own Kali Reis, is still the reigning WBA super lightweight champion. Last I checked, she was still registered as such. One can make the inference that perhaps the version of the WBA title that Erika is going to be fighting for is perhaps the interim title?
Maybe.
The gold?
Not the super.
Yeah, that wouldn't really make a lot of sense. There wasn't a vacant super title floating around. You know, Jessica McCaskill, she was the unified champion very recently, and she moved up in weight, defeated Cecilia Breakhouse, and the two titles she held at 140, they became vacant. Kali Reis subsequently picked one of them up. Chantel Cameron picked up the other. That being said, it wouldn't make sense for Erika Farias, having not fought in over a year, to somehow have a WBA title, a super title, made available to her.
Did Kali Reis vacate the WBA title?
That is yet another possible scenario, though we've no confirmation of such a scenario having taken place, though I will add that that's more or less what happened with Cecilia Comunales, the former WBA lightweight champion. She vacated her title.
This was years ago.
And when she did, it flew largely under the radar. Argentinia's Anaí Esther Sanchez was subsequently elevated to full WBA champion, lost the title on the scales ahead of the Katie Taylor fight. Better still, it is possible that, maybe Kali Reis vacated the title and that news just hasn't broken yet. I'm not sure.
Wouldn't be the first time that's happened.
Erika Farias is supposed to be fighting for a WBA title of some kind. We'll find out in the coming days and weeks as the fight date approaches what version of the title she's going to be fighting for. Is this all to become a mandatory challenger to Kali Reis's full WBA title? That's another possibility. She's going to be taking on Janina Lescano. Sports a professional record of 7 wins and 1 loss, no recorded knockouts. Up until this point, Janina has been campaigning as a lightweight in the 135-pound division. This fight is set to take place at a contracted weight of 140 pounds. That really is Erika Farias' neck of the woods. That's her territory. And Erika hasn't had a fight since she lost to Jessica McCaskill for the second time in October of 2019. It's been well over 12 months since Erika had a fight.
It's been a while.
But 16 months total. 16 months to be exact. This is going to be Erika Farias' first fight under the Maidana Promotions banner. Those of you who follow the channel might remember. A few weeks ago, we were talking about how Erika Farias has entered into a promotional pact with Chino Maidana, Marcos Maidana's promotional company over there in Argentina.
Set to go down April 9th.
Janina hasn't shared the squared circle with a fighter as experienced and as skilled as Erika Farias. For the most part, Janina's opponents have been pedestrian level up until this point.
This is a big step up for her.
Janina was last in action in February of last year. She won by way of DQ against Mayra Moneo. Mayra,
fought dirty.
did some rabbit punching, caused some headbutts that resulted in Mayra being disqualified. As a result of that, Janina was awarded the victory. But Janina hasn't fought in roughly about 12 months. 12 months to Erika Farias' 16. So in that way, they're more or less on an even keel. They have been more or less inactive, the both of them. And I want to say that Erika Farias appears to have been in very good spirits, very good condition. This is actually the most svelte I've ever seen her. I almost thought she was moving down to 135 pounds. There is noticeable musculature on Erika Farias. She's very fit and trim, seems to be in very good spirits, and this will be her first fight under the Chino Maidana banner, promotional banner, and I think that Erika stands a good chance of winning this fight. It's just the matter of the WBA title and what version of it she's going to be fighting for that I think is rather confusing. That's a story that only time can tell, and time will tell it as the fight date approaches. What version of the WBA title are they talking about here? We'll find out on April 9th. In other news, Gervonta Davis released a revealing set of tweets that read, "Ryan is begging to fight me now. Now I make you wait. Just so you know, we run the show."
Bunch of fucking cornballs.
Ryan Garcia supposedly had put the Gervonta Davis fight on hold because of some engagement he was supposed to have with Manny Pacquiao. I never had any stock in those stories. I never had any stock in those rumors. I never really bought into Ryan Garcia doing anything with Manny Pacquiao. But then again, before that news even broke, before that even became a thing, I never had any stock in Ryan Garcia fighting Gervonta Davis next. I never had any stock in that either. I'll say that there is reason to believe that Ryan Garcia had a dialogue with someone on the Manny Pacquiao side of things because Sean Gibbons has been uploading some interesting images to his Instagram account. Sean Gibbons, who's supposed to be Team Pacquiao. In that way, perhaps Ryan had talked to somebody over there about doing something. I don't think that the kid was outright lying, because if he were, Sean Gibbons wouldn't be uploading images like this to his Instagram account. Something was going on there, but regardless of what that was or what it is, I don't think it's going to result in a fight. And I never did.
Who knows what the fuck's happening over there?
At the same time, I never believed that after the Luke Campbell fight, the Gervonta Davis fight would be next. That being said, the entire situation at lightweight is a boring situation to me. It's a boring situation as far as I'm concerned. I said it before, and I'll say it again. This is what happens when a division is overrun with American fighters. I hate to say it as a Native American myself, but it's the truth. What's happening at lightweight is also happening at welterweight. You'll notice what the constant is. What's the common denominator? Those are divisions that are overrun with American fighters.
Look at any weight class where unifications are happening.
Look at super flyweight. Nicaraguan WBA champion versus Mexican WBC champion. Look at the junior welterweight division. Scottish unified champion Josh Taylor against American fighter Jose Ramirez, but better still.
That division ain't overrun with American fighters.
Look at the super middleweight division. Canelo Alvarez, Mexican-born Canelo Alvarez, is in the process of unifying the super middleweight division. Oh, granted, he's going to be facing Avni Yildirim in his very next fight towards the end of this month, but after that, he's going to take on Billy Joe Saunders. So that's Mexican fighter versus British fighter.
Look at the heavyweight division.
When an American fighter held the green belt, that American fighter being Deontay Wilder.
Remember him?
Unifying the division.
Achieving undisputed.
Crowning an undisputed champion in this weight class almost seemed impossible until the title was lifted from him by a British fighter. And now that all the world titles in that weight class are held by Brits, lo and behold, we're in the process of finalizing a fight between the two remaining champions in this division. We're in the process of finalizing the fight for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. No Americans involved.
Stop me when I tell a lie.
The statement I'm making isn't intended to cast blame over every single American-born fighter that is an American-born fighter, so much as this is a constant. This is a recurring theme when a division becomes overrun with American fighters.
Stop me when I tell a lie.
And I think the reason for this is that a lot of American fighters,
not all,
they get all wrapped up trying to be suits. They get all wrapped up trying to be business guys. Hey, I understand paying attention to detail when it comes to your own career and doing what's best for oneself. I get it.
I understand.
But what that's resulting in is a lot of fighters that are not behaving like fighters. Taking care of business outside of the ring.
That's fine.
That really shouldn't stop you from behaving like a fighter, because it's behaving like a fighter that even got you an audience. You know, that's what the audience is there to see. So I look at Gervonta and I look at Ryan, two guys who seem less concerned with their legacies as fighters and more concerned with their celebrity. They're more concerned with becoming superstars.
This is a recurring theme with American fighters.
Both Ryan and Gervonta Davis's dance cards are free. None of those guys got an opponent book. Not yet.
They don't.
And if they really wanted to, they could get the ball rolling for the fight between them. But you know what's going to happen before I even say it? Those guys ain't fighting next.
For whatever fucking reason.
They're not. And this is just going to go on. This is just going to go on like this for a while. If you're talking about two unbeaten British fighters, prospects or otherwise, you'll get them to fight before you can get two American unbeaten fighters to fight. Think about it. Dillian White, Anthony Joshua, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois versus Nathan Gorman.
Fat chance of that happening here stateside.
So when I look at this, reading these tweets from Gervonta Davis, all I see is another chapter in the same book.
The whole thing is boring.
You fucking know it. Moreover, you're not going to tell me that you're reading this and you're the least bit surprised. You're no more surprised than I am, and I'll tell you something. I'm not fucking surprised. I told you. These guys ain't fighting no time in the near future.
If ever.
In Super Bantamweight news, former Super Bantamweight champion Daniel Roman took to Twitter and left a comment that reads, "As a professional and responsible fighter that I am, I was back in a gym a week after my last fight in September. It is very frustrating and disrespectful not knowing when I will fight again." Daniel Roman was on the matchroom side of things not that long ago, but he lost his 2 world titles to Muradjan Akhmadaliev, the current reigning WBA and IBF champion. Afterwards, Daniel, he ended up in the PBC's Bermuda Triangle of fighters, where fighters, they go over there, they disappear, and you don't see him for a long time, He's on PBC Island right now. That would explain why Daniel, here today, has no fight date, nothing on the horizon, in spite of being on the same side of the street as 2 world champions. Stephen Fulton, who holds the WBO, and Luis Neri, who holds the WBC. The sparse schedule of activity that the PBC likes to keep their fighters on, it's starting to chap young Daniel's ass.
Some fighters like it and some fighters don't.
If you're a fighter that wants to fight on a regular basis, you have your goals, your ambitions, and you want to get out there, the PBC ain't the place for you. Doesn't seem to be the place for Daniel Roman. It hasn't even been a year since his last fight, and he's already getting pissed off because he wants to know what he's building towards. That way, the PBC is not the ideal place for him. But, if you're like Gary Russell Jr., you only want to fight once a year anyway. That guy's been fighting once a year for the last 6 years. He'll make a ring appearance and go into hiding for the next 12 months, make a couple of YouTube appearances, have some strolls down memory lane, that kind of stuff. If you're that kind of fighter, then the PBC would be the right place for you. All depends on what you want to get out of your career. For Daniel, this sparse schedule of activity he's on, he doesn't like it.
He wants a fucking fight day.
And what have I been telling you guys this whole time? I don't think that the PBC has enough fight dates to accommodate all of their fighters. Some of their fighters are okay with it, some of them aren't. But that's what's going on over there. If you're Keith Thurman, you don't mind spending 12 months, maybe even 24, sitting on the couch, doing interviews, calling people out, not having fights. If you're Keith Thurman, that's not going to bother you. If you're Gary Russell Jr. and you've been fighting once a year for the last 6 years, well, that's not going to bother you either. But if you're Daniel Roman and you're trying to spend the best years of your career out there under the hot lights, well, then it's going to bother you.
PBC's not the place for you.
You don't go over there to fight for your legacy. You go over there to lounge. You go over there to take it easy, to take trips and vacations.
That's what you go over there to do.
I think the only fighter over there remotely consigned with his legacy has to be Jermel Charlo. He's only 1 belt away from becoming an undisputed champion. That aside,
him and who else?
I think Daniel better look for a change of ambiance. I think he better seek release from whatever situation he's got going on over there. Because if he wants things to change, they're not going to change under the PBC banner. They're just not. Marcus Brown, Keith Thurman, Andy Ruiz, these are all guys that haven't seen any action in over 12 months. 12 months or over 12 months.
The ground swallowed up Omar Figueroa.
Swallowed up Ray Vargas, too. He signed a pact with the PBC, and the only thing that's happened since then is he has vacated his WBC title, and it has now gone to...
Who was it, Luis Neri? Ray broke his leg a million years ago.
I heard some rumblings that he's supposed to be moving up in weight very soon. I think they're going to feed him to Gary Russell Jr. I don't even know if that's still supposed to happen. Just some rumors I heard.
Another guy who hasn't fought in 12 months.
I don't know. Maybe the PBC can do something for Daniel Roman. As the old saying goes, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, that's what they say.
You have to wonder, what long-term plans do the people over there at the PBC have for Daniel Roman? Just being honest when I say that kid better look into changing his ambiance, because time waits for no man, and this is a young man's sport after all. And finally, a continuation to a story I talked about in a previous video. Galahad versus Dickens, MTK Global wins purse bid for vacant IBF featherweight title fight. Now, apparently, the purse bid that Tom Brown, TGB Promotions, the purse bid they won...
It must have been immediately after Warrington vacated the title.
TGB Promotions placed the sole bid, thus the winning bid, for I guess what was to be Kid Galahad's next fight. I don't even know how this works. They placed a bid and they won the right, something to the tune of $50,000, something along those lines. But thereafter, there was another bid for Kid Galahad versus Jazza Dickens, what will be their rematch for what is now the newly vacated IBF title. And MTK Global placed the winning bid for that fight, something to the tune of $200,000, a little over that.
They wanted promotional rights for the fight.
And when it came to that purse bid, they were the only ones to place a bid. to win the rights for that fight. So you can expect that Galahad versus Dickens 2 for the newly vacated IBF title will be happening on some MTK Global affiliate, maybe IFL TV on YouTube.
I still think Gary's going to the PBC, though.
I think that, in spite of TGB here and now not having the rights for Kid Galahad's fight, it all equates to the same thing. TGB even bidding on the fight at all. That's what that communicates to me. As we all know, TGB is in bed with PBC.
PBC made Kid Galahad a multi-fight offer.
An offer that he seemed very excited about. An offer that I think is contingent upon Kid Galahad winning that IBF title so that he can then take it over to PBC Island. That would give them control of 3 of the 4 major titles in this weight class at 126 pounds.
I still think that's going to happen.
I think Kid Galahad views fights with either Leo Santa Cruz or Gary Russell Jr. as more attractive options than, say, a fight with Emmanuel Navarrete, the newly crowned WBO champion at 126 pounds. I think that Kid Galahad looks at Leo or Gary as more attractive options than Emmanuel.
Leo especially.
Because he just got knocked the fuck out by Gervonta Davis at 130 pounds, though he's still holding the WBA title at 126. I think the people over there at the PBC might be waiting for Kid Galahad to seal the deal, win the red belt, and then he will enter into that situation with them.
And then they'll proceed to freeze Emmanuel out.
Which is what I was telling you before. If all 3 of those world titles end up on the PBC side of things, the PBC can then stage a round robin between their 3 reigning champions at 126 pounds, which isn't the worst thing in the world, so long as the fights happen. But for El Vaquero, for Emmanuel Navarrete,
Well, he's fucked.
he won't get any of those fights with any of those fighters.
That's what I think's going to happen.